the meeting, and let me just make sure it's recording.
Okay.
Okay, you're good to start.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Baldini, and I am calling to order this meeting of the Newcastle Planning Commission for Monday, April 26th. And with that, we'll start with the roll call. Jonathan?
Present.
And Gail? You're muted. Okay, Aaron?
Present.
John?
Present.
George?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
And Vera? You're muted too, Vera.
I'm here.
Okay. That we have everyone. Joe Day has resigned from the commission because of his changing in city functions here. So we will go with 8. And that said, the first item will be the minutes. Are there any questions on anything about the minutes from the last meeting?
We have one edit
Okay.
in reference to the transportation study. And the website should be wilmapco.org/City of Newcastle, not TIP.
Okay. Anything else? Any other edits, comments? And can I get a motion to accept the minutes as changed?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. New business. First item will be 90 Lukens Drive. And we have members from Mario, I see you're here.
Yes.
And then Ryan, you're going to be doing it for AECom. We have Jeff, so we have enough to start the conversation. So Mario, I'll let you start.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Well, good evening, and thanks for having us back. We appreciate it. I represent Parkway Gravel. We are the owners of 90 Lukens. And not to bore you, because you heard a bunch of this last time, but just as a reminder, we're excited that we got a tenant that's so successful with their business. They want 100,000 square feet so they can grow it some more. So that's what we're proposing at 90 Lukens. It's approximately 7.4 acres. Actually, if you want, I can share the screen and pull up the plan, so I can do that. So we're not looking at just me. Let's see.
Kim has them as well. So
You should see it.
we have that now. Okay.
Beautiful. So 90 Lukens, you got the railroad to the west and you got Lukens to the south. And so as a required of this, because of the size of the building, we did go to plus back on March 24th. And I figured what I'd do is I'd quickly go through how we're going to address or respond to their comments that maybe help you get a flavor for that. And then I'll go into the comments that Chris Rogers put together, and I'll tell you how we're responding to those as well.
All right.
So just real quickly, we're in investment level 1, which of course, that's where Delaware wants this developed. So we're good there. The infrastructure exists to support it. DelDOT, they wanted us to notify the fact that we're doing construction in a airspace zone. So we will take care of doing so. Obviously, this is a Newcastle street ultimately once it gets turned over. So DelDOT really doesn't have a say on the road other than if you all ask for a letter of no objection, then we know that we have to pay the initial stage fee. They did say they were backing the Delaware Transit Corporation's recommendation to move a few stops closer to where we're going to build this project. Candidly, we haven't reviewed that very closely to see how feasible that is, but it's something that we'll certainly consider. And they asked about doing a type 2 bus pad. Again, we'll certainly take that under consideration. Denrick brought up the fact that we are near a floodplain. The good news is we're not in the floodplain, we're outside of that. They also bring up that we have to follow the, do a pre-application meeting, develop a sediment and stormwater plan. We've done all those things. We've actually met with the Newcastle Conservation District. We've already got plans into them, have already, are addressing their comments, but essentially they're on board with the stormwater we have proposed. We also have to, because we're doing construction in a watershed, we have to do a notice of intent. We will be doing that. They reference the wetlands that are on the property. However, we're not going to be impacting those wetlands. We're staying out of those. And as a result, we have created buffer zones, which make it even better. The State Historic Preservation Office really had no comments to address, so we'll leave that alone. And then Delaware Emergency Management Agency basically referenced again that we're near the properties in the floodplain, but again, we're not going to develop in that area, so we should be good. I think I've got all the plus comments by going through that. So if you want, I can pause there to see if there's any thoughts you all have on the plus comments that you want me to go into further depth, or I can move on to the planner comments.
Commissioners, anyone have questions on the plus comments?
I just wanted to clarify. So the site itself has an area that is in the 100-year floodplain, but you're not planning to build in that area. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. It's correct. If you're looking at this drawing on the screen, let me get my mouse over here. It's over here. It's like it's not even on the picture, because we're doing everything down here below the floodplain. So above the floodplain, basically, it's at a higher elevation. And so see how you have the wetlands here in the upper right-hand corner? The floodplain is actually a little bit higher up in the picture than that. So we're completely outside that.
And just for the record, you're about 10 feet above the floodplain, aren't you?
I believe we are. Yeah, I think we're, matter of fact, our finished floor elevation is 19. And if I remember right, the floodplain elevation, that area is elevation 9.
Any other questions for Mario?
And we can come back to it. I'll go ahead and go through the planner comments. And
Okay.
really what Chris did in his letter acknowledges that our plan predominantly meets the code, Newcastle City Code. The bigger questions came into, and I say bigger questions, the questions came in with the landscape plan. So I'm actually going to flip over to that. And I zoomed in on the parking lot, which is where Chris's questions really came into play. And what I will tell you is that this plan meets the intent of the code. And let me say what that means. For starters, we do have that screening along the front side of the parking lot. You'll see that line, that's actually the steel ornamental fence that's required by code. Also with shrubbery within it to help create that screen. There's also a requirement to have the shade trees within the parking lot area. All of the trees we have on here meet that, but they're not necessarily all in the parking lot. So we do meet the intent of the code. If you want us to meet it to the letter of the law, as we may understand it tonight, I can create some more islands within the parking lot to do that. Candidly, what I'll end up doing is I'll reduce the parking in order to do so. I will tell you that we are over parked. We do have more parking than is necessary for the size of the building. I kept the building myself. I kept the parking lot number up to maintain flexibility for future users. I mean, right now we know what's going to be in there with the folks coming in next door from the logistics company. But since this is we're the landlord and we may have a tenant with different needs down the road, I was trying to maintain as much flexibility in the parking lot. So I'm sure Ryan's got some comments he could add to that, but I'll say we're excited to get the project underway, and we appreciate the feedback we received throughout this project and look forward to addressing any further comments or questions you have.
Okay. Ryan?
So, so does everybody understand exactly what Mario is saying in terms of like what the requirement is? The requirement per 230-28G is 1 shade tree for every 5 parking spaces. So there are 132 parking spaces, and that would require 27 shade trees. So, okay, so that's clear. The code also says it needs to be in the parking area, and 10 of them are outside the parking area. So we're clear on that. I could say that Chris was okay with it, saying that they were close by, they're on the site, it's kind of in conformity with the surrounding. He believes there's no negative impacts to surrounding properties. So I can say that. The rest is up to you. Are you okay with the plan as submitted?
All right. Any thoughts from the commission? Okay.
Well, I mean, it appears that the design is more to provide some screening or some trees along the roadway rather than in the interior of the parking lot.
I think that's a fair statement. We recognize people don't want to look at parking lots.
Right.
They don't necessarily want to look at buildings either. So, we're trying
Right.
to provide as much screening as possible. So I agree with that statement.
Which makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not one sitting here saying, well, it's got to be the absolute, to the absolute letter of the law. I mean, you're meeting the intent. What I don't want is to be the absolute there in the parking lot to the code, and then it be different than the other sites along the way, so that it then jumps out as being non-conforming. You met the letter of the law, but now you're non-conforming to the rest of the neighborhood, and it undoes what you're trying to do. So from the perspective that, as Chris said, that he's okay with the way you've got your concepts there and everything else, I think I'm okay with that. He had some comment about the fencing, that you had some ideas on the fencing. Is that?
At this time, we don't. We haven't really looked at what exactly it's going to look like, but it'll meet what's required by your code. That's
The fencing's compliant. The only thing we're talking about are some of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if I'm reading everyone correctly, it gives no great offense since it's within the spirit of the ordinance. I have absolutely no problem with it. It'll look just fine. And I'm also in agreement. You can never have enough parking. I mean, we don't know what parking is going to be 15 years from now because of the impending EV revolution. But I think it's a good job. I think it'll look great.
Well, let me get back to that point. One of the recommendations in the plus comments for future vision was EV parking, putting chargers in place. What are your thoughts on that? Just
That's really going to be more tenant driven than
Yeah.
us. So I mean, we certainly aren't going to tell them not to,
Uh-huh.
but, and candidly, I don't think Nicholas is on the call, but I know one of the things his grandfather has charged him with is, for us to start looking at electric vehicles for our fleet down the road. So.
Well, I think just as a thought, the commission is working with MSC, city and the historical commission, and there is a lot of movement in town on EVs. You may want to plug into it just to be proactive.
I like that. I like the use of the word plugging into it.
Yeah, because you can talk to John later on off the call, and John Lafferty is running point for the commission, for the planning commission, and he can give you insights as to where we are and who's involved. And like I say, you plug in, you know what's going on, and then you can put it into your planning.
And the timing of that's pretty important, because as it stands now, I don't know how the state rebates are working for private individuals, private companies, but I know that we're all aware that program is going to come to an end at the end of June. So that's something else that you may want to take into consideration is state incentives for the installation of the EV chargers.
Okay.
I would just for your thought, if this is a lease, is this a lease?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, then you're gonna own the building and you may not have the same tenant down the road. And they may have, as one of the parameters of its search for new space, a capacity for chargers. I mean, if I was developing, that's what I'd do. I'd put it in now.
Understood.
All right. Any other things from the commission?
Just have a comment, or really a suggestion regarding the landscape design. I see that there's already the planting schedule and the selection of the trees and shrubs, and I would just make a suggestion to consider planting possibly native plants if that's something that your nursery might be able to consider. Or there's a schedule here, and I honestly don't know if all of these that you have in your planting schedule are native. I know that it says that they're in our planting zone, but just something that landscapers might consider.
I'll look at it. I will tell you that Ellen Tracy's pretty good about that sort of thing. That's sort of one of her things one of her go-to things is to be more native species. So I suspect that we're there, but I'll certainly have no problem looking into that, because I agree with that statement.
Thank you.
David, I have a comment building off that.
Sure.
So on item number 14 and Chris's review letter,
Mhm.
The applicant should demonstrate how the plan complies with the 10% or 5% landscaping requirement per sections 230.g 2 and 3. So the requirement is at least 10% should be of the total parking area should be landscaped. We were looking for verification of that. We didn't trace it to do our own calc, so we were asking for a calc either to be provided on the plan or some kind of document. And 5%, if the code says the planning commission may reduce that minimum from 10% to 5% if native and indigenous plantings are used. And also if the visual impacts of the parking area are not detrimental to the surrounding area, which we've already discussed that condition is met.
All right.
I think to address his comment, the 10 and 5%, I do have a statement, an email from, and I actually sent that to Chris. But you said he may not even seen it yet, but Jeff, that was the one you were copied on this morning, that she basically confirms the 10 and 5.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then let me go through Chris's letter real quick. Just to make sure we're covering all the bases here. So he is saying you're compliant with the first four, you're compliant with all of the code, et cetera. He talked about the site plan should be relabeled on page 1. Did I see that somewhere?
Number 5, yes, sir.
And then given the preamble there, he then talks about in item 6, he talks about restrictive covenants. And of all of the restrictive covenants, and I'm not sure I have them all, are we in conformance with all of that?
My understanding is correct that we are in conformance.
Okay,
To further back that up, we are the voting members of that board, so to speak, and
okay,
we hold the majority votes.
okay.
So I think we'll agree with ourselves.
All right. Then as I get into 7, 8, and 9, we're talking about the building designs. We're talking about the plus comments and the approval of construction signature blocks. Given all of that, and then all of the requirements that came out of the plus review, Jeff, how do we make sure that they get done and is included in the package?
I don't give them a building permit till they comply.
Okay. Okay, and you're okay with that, Mario?
Yes, sir. This means I have to be nice to him, that's all.
That's kind of it, and make sure the paper's there because we want the package tight. I don't want downstream squawks kind of thing. And that only delays the project. So and then we get into the whole time is money routine. So
Absolutely.
and then we've done the landscape plan. So given Chris's letter, are there any commissioners, any questions from any of the commissioners on that? We're all good with it? All right then. What else do I need to touch base on, Jeff?
You need a motion to approve the
To prove that the
approve
site
the
plan.
site plan as presented with the conditions established.
Before I get there though, I wanted to make sure everybody's okay with it. All right then, can I get a motion to approve the site plan with the conditions that we've laid out?
Motion.
Can I get
Second.
a second?
Second?
All right. And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then we have the site plan recommendations. Well, we'll turn over to council, I guess. So Mario, I think you're good to go.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Much appreciated and good luck with this.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
All right, then the next item that we have is the come on, what did I do on my schedule here? With this, the subdivision here on of the Deemer plot.
Tremont Street.
So in this subdivision, we are taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots on Tremont Street and 2 on Deemer Place. So Ryan, can you tell us what we got going on? Or Jeff?
1 second, I'm not up to speed on this one. My apologies.
I can do it.
Okay.
There were in some houses built on Tremont Street in Deemers by Buddy Deemer in around 1925. For some reason, they recorded them on two different deeds, one of them with 2 and the other one with however many it is. And they are identified as individual lots and called out with individual meets and bounds for each lot. But as they got recorded, they get recorded as 2 different parcels instead of as individual lots. Now now it's biting them because they're going to have to go to the city council for a minor subdivision, and before they can do that, they're going to need recommendations. They're going to have variances, a myriad of variances for the lots to permit them to exist as they were and not recorded. It's still some legal stuff, but what we need is a recommendation from the planning commission to do what should have been done sometime, at least at the very latest, at 1955, when they recorded these 2 deeds that are before us. So if the planning commission would like to consider this could be the start of the discussion, or you could just finish it and send it off to with a recommendation to city council, and the board of adjustment can consider, has to consider your recommendation before they can, make a set of variances. That make any sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do we have to create the variances? I mean, or do
No. All you have to do is since the meets and bounds were already written, the subdivision, we could, and the buildings existed prior to any building code, zoning code, or anything else. Then what we're doing is cleaning up something that occurred in the past. In some jurisdictions, this would be entirely administrative. The fact that because of the intricacies of our law, if I just ordered the land use department to create individual tax parcels for each one of these, that could happen, and but it's not exactly a complete time machine, because there wouldn't be existing nonconformities once they were created. They'd be nonconformities creating whenever I told them to do that. And then that kind of is very bad for the future owners of the property. So now we've got to go through this, and the planning commission, I think, should just be perfunctory, because the lots are there, the houses are there. You can't stretch the land. So I just think if the planning commission felt it was reasonable to do, if you recommended to city council that this proposed minor subdivision be approved, then we could send them off to the Board of Adjustment to see whether they can get enough variances to do this neatly. Otherwise, the parcels remain convoluted, and I don't know who's going to buy one parcel with 5 houses on it. It sounds like a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Jeff, what is the ownership now?
Lena Deemer owns them all.
So they're renting?
They're renting, yes. None of them are owner occupied. They've been rental units since they were built in the 1920s.
Right. So there's 2 parcels with a legal description.
No, yes, but there's an individual meets and bounds for each one of the lots.
Yes, I understand that. That's that's the quirk here.
Yeah.
But at least it gives us plenty to start with. And actuality, I'm in favor of passing it along, just as you said, with the recommendation that be taken. I'm very familiar with the site. When I came to this town, I almost rented one of those. I didn't know that it was as convoluted as it is, but basically those 2 parcels subsume various legal descriptions inside their boundaries. And we just want to break them out and make them individual parcels themselves and create the variances necessary so that you can go forward and be in compliance with the code.
Precisely.
Is that accurate?
Precisely. God knows what would happen if one of them burned down. We've come close twice since I've been here, but haven't gone all the way, so.
Well, I think it's in everyone's best interest, not just the landowner, but the towns to clean this mess up, and it's easily done. Because they did all the work. For some quirky reason, they just did 2 parcels. I have no idea why they would do that, but they did all the work and then they didn't,
Right.
run the extra mile. Okay. I'm all for just passing it along with the approval that, certain variances need to be put in place so that the then individual parcels numbering, what is it, 8 or 7 or
Right.
Whatever, will work together and be cohesive, yet stand alone as parcels themselves.
Any other commissioners?
Can you give some examples of variances that will be needed?
Lot area, lot width, lot depth, and as well as lot coverage and setbacks. Not all of them need, not every setback needs a variance, but most of them.
Right, I know, it looked like there were garages some didn't look like they had driveways to them. I didn't understand the access, and it looks like they're right on the property lines. So that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, but they've actually been working pretty well for 100 years now.
Right.
Well, I think that the Board of Adjustment's going to have its hands full, trying to sort it out a little bit. But we know that the houses are pretty much where these older plans from Mr. Zebley say they are, and we know that that was done so long ago. They're not modern survey plans, so I'm sure they're going to make them resurvey the whole property, pay a bunch of money to the Board of Adjustment for hearings, and then go ahead and pay for a subdivision or 2. So it's really just a bunch of fun, but it's too bad they didn't fix it in the 50s, but they didn't.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Clean up on aisle 3, right?
Yep.
All right. And Jeff, this would go to Board of Adjustments first and then the council?
If you recommend it can go straight to the Board of Adjustment, and then their lawyer can take it to the Board of Adjustment with a recommendation from Planning Commission to let it be as it is, and then the Board of Adjustment and propose a whole bunch of variances, and then the Board of Adjustment has to consider where they want to grant the variances. I don't know what else they could really do, but certainly.
Yeah, they're the ones left holding the hot potato.
Oh, yes. Then it'll go to City Council, who will for approval, and they'll just say, okay, however it shakes out.
All right, so then my motion would be to recommend the minor subdivision as presented to the Board of Adjustments.
Yes, could you make it plural, minor subdivisions as presented?
Yep.
There's at least 2 of them, because there's 2 tax parcels being split up. And I don't know what the Board of Adjustment is going to think about it, try to charge them for, whatever. But the land and the buildings aren't moving, so.
All right. So can I get a motion for the recommendation of the minor subdivisions approval to be minor subdivision? Let's see, how do I phrase this? Recommendation that the subdivisions as presented be forwarded to the Board of Adjustment.
A motion.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
God bless you.
All, no one's opposed? Well, that's like 2 in a row, right? In these little cleanups we're doing. We only
Yeah.
have how many more, Jeff? 305?
Well, you've got some fun coming up with the, oh, well, never mind.
You can let it be a surprise.
Yeah.
All right. So then we have the next item here. We'll move into some of the projects that we have, since we have no more new business. So we'll do the, let's do the site plan conversation. Bill had taken Chris's draft and then reformatted it. I think you all have copies of that. And do we have any comments on that or thoughts on that? Bill's going to do a little thought here. Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can explain it and what the mission is, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I don't have a copy of that.
Oh, my.
I don't know how that happened, but that's okay. I ought to know what's in it.
Kim, can you throw that up? Thanks.
The purpose, and it's something we've been boxing with for quite some time now, is simply to replace the existing mechanism, which kind of fails, and this is for the submission of land application development. And it failed just because it didn't go far enough in giving direction and forcing the applicant to provide that which they really should be providing. Simple premise. So Chris wrote up one thing. I wrote up something before that. It eventually got into a form with regard to the land application protocol for all applicants, which is, and Joe Hand has seen it, everyone's seen it or discussed it over these many months. And we seem, at least as far as I'm concerned, and I talked with Jeff very briefly about this the other day, something that's satisfactory and provides for a process, which is what we badly needed. And it not only provides direction for the applicant, it provides direction for the various commissions that will have to pass on land applications. So I think we've achieved that. At least we have what I hope would be close to a final form. It's awaiting your comments. And then, of course, we'll clean it up, given those comments, and submit it to council. It also, I put in there the special exception. Now, a special exception is normally used in a land development ordinance, regardless of the state, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, doesn't matter, to make zoning changes. And the reason for that is, I'll give you an example of virtually no zoning ordinances provide for the development of a hotel. It's crazy, but they just simply don't anticipate it by and large. So having developed about I don't know, a half a dozen hotels. I always had to go in and get a special exception, and therefore, in effect, have it permitted in the place I wanted it under the existing zoning. This, in the context of what we've done in planning and the land application process, is to anticipate those kinds of things that come in the door that none of us have thought about. And it's not a perfect analogy, but here we're confronted with the whole thing that John's wrestling and doing a terrific job on, and that is provide. Hello? And that is providing for electric vehicles, which are going to be part of our future and probably to the exclusion of carbon emission. We've got to prepare for that. Now, one of the ways that you do it, and any other use, we don't really specifically talk about a multi-use project. I can think of a site in this town within the borders that should be a multi-use project. And it's a no-brainer. And someday somebody's going to come along and do that. So what the special exception allows us to do is to consider any land application outside existing ordinances, as long as they comply with the threshold issue being, oh, well, this is something that makes sense and that we want as a town. This is good for the town, as long as it's carried out in a fashion that it should be. And then any number of other parameters, not a threat to life safety and the welfare of the general public, and does not create a transportation problem, so on and so forth. So that was added onto it. And we should be in good stead now regarding applications in the future. And we should, we're in a position to know exactly how they will be handled and what's to be done. That's a meandering summary. Sorry for that, but I didn't expect to have to address it tonight.
You did great, buddy. You did great. Questions, conversation. Jeff, does this work for you?
Oh my God, yes. It's been 30 years. I've been begging for something like this. Everything was like reinventing the code or tweaking the code for every project. This is beautiful.
I do have one very small question,
Sure.
and it is very small. In the table at the end of basic information required, item number 21, summary of required and proposed schedule district regulations. My question is, would it be unduly burdensome for applicants if we got that at the concept plan stage as well as site plan? If so, I wouldn't insist, but if it's something that we could ask for that wouldn't be a burden, it might be useful to have
I
it
think
early.
I agree with you. I think it ought to be, I mean, you're talking about a summary. I mean, at the worst case, it'd just be a listing. And that we could then go find out some of these things. But to what we're trying to get done here, it allows us to have insight as to what is coming forward. And there's no surprises by the time we get to the site plan side. So Bill, that's not problematic, right? We could put that in.
Well, you may have people that are not quite ready to deliver on everything in the concept phase.
Uh-huh. Well, we could get a good faith effort, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily come up with language asking them to include in their initial application that which they have regarding the points set forth in schedule, whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
even if they mark the list as TBD, at least they're recognizing it and it's kind of
Right.
giving us notice.
Right, I agree. You know, the balance is very simple. You don't want to ask part of the reason for having the process is this is a way to force developers what they should be doing to begin with, and that is I never did a development where I didn't go in and talk to people on the planning board, either all of them or some of them informally, and tell them what I had in mind. And no, it's not my two are asleep, so it's not that.
It's the one I used to have.
Okay. Well, I lost my train of thought. Who let the dogs out?
You know, actually, Bill, I've got another screen here, and I've just looked up the schedule of district regulations, and it just has to do with building bulk and yards and lot size. And so I had misunderstood what that referred to, and I think it's fine the way it is. Actually, I was thinking that schedule of required regulations would address sort of the use and how an idea met the intent and letter of the sort of the use sections of the zoning, which I was wrong, and so I dropped my question. I've already answered.
Okay. Well, I mean, but the good thing is we've provided the bones, and you can come forward at a much earlier stage and it initiates a dialogue where you're talking about where you're going with your project, or simply what it is that you would like to be able to do, and that can only be good. So
this has got to be an enormous improvement.
I would like to add one thing. So Chris had mentioned that you had discussed this at the last meeting or a previous meeting,
Mhm.
and that he still owes you some comments and revisions that he received from that meeting, most notably the adding minor site plan requirements.
Mhm.
So you might be aware already, but what you're seeing now is not the final.
Your point is, and you're correct. We thought that there were things that simply didn't rise to the level of getting cast into the machinery here, and that were easily approved, and we don't use it as a defined term. A lot of ordinances do, where they define a real estate person, which in our case would be Jeff, where he would just say, oh, that's fine. You don't have to go through all this. And that's what Joe Hand's point was. And I agree with him. So, if it's a question of adding that language, Chris, I'm sure he's not shy. He'll just come forward and add it.
So is the commission okay with what we've got done here? As a concept?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take this draft that we've got and send it back to Chris and put his final inputs in? And then Jeff, if you and Chris can just touch base with each other.
Right.
And if this is okay to become the final draft, then from here, we'll move it to council.
Wonderful.
Okay, so let's look forward to making this, to deciding on this in the May meeting as the final draft, and then submit to council. It would be the front of council in should be the June meeting, ideally.
Great.
We good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right then. And then do we need language, Jeff, for streamlining this to do the administrative things? Do we?
Chris, I think Chris is going to supply that before you see it again.
Okay. Then we'll look for both of those next month and then decide on that and get it to council in June.
Great.
All right. So then, what do we want to do here? I want to do electric cars, John. Tell me, is there things, how are things in the e-world?
Things are proceeding. I'm happy to report we've made some positive progress. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to sit in on the council meeting. I did not, but this is also in the council notes in the weekly dated April 21st. And all indications to me are that they are moving ahead with the installation of that first charger in the 3rd Street lot, which I think is absolutely great. That's what we need to do, get the ball rolling. And beyond that, I think it was last week, Justin Day, on behalf of the Historical Commission, went out on site on the other recommended locations. I had actually provided a list, and Dave, I copied you in on that. Or I think Linda copied you in on that, of the recommended locations that we discussed previously with Mayor Carranza, Justin Day, and myself. And Scott Blomquist from the MSC and Justin actually went out on site and looked at some of these locations and made some basic tentative recommendations. Of course, it was starting with 3rd Street. Starting with a one charger. Bear in mind, these are dual chargers, so one charger is going to cover 2 cars. And eventually, they're saying recommending 6 spots there, which is what the parking lot is provisioned for with the conduit, is my understanding, which makes sense, being that is the closest proximity to the historic area and the restaurants. And beyond that, they were also looking at some other possible locations, tennis court parking lot, sailing club area, and Chestnut Street parking lot, and also post office. And Scott Blomquist's role, of course, was to assess the existing infrastructure. What do they have in place electrically? What spots would it make the most sense to designate as EV spots? So some good intelligence was gathered there. And that's going to be our next step, of course, is to start building these out. And also understand MSC is currently assessing the number of chargers they want to buy so they can get the maximum consideration from the state rebate program, of course, which expires on June 30th. So things are in motion with respect to that. And we're also, of course, looking beyond just the immediate area, around the historic areas in town. Looking beyond that, I'd recommend it, and as well as Mike Carranza, the farmers market, and additional areas, parking areas outside of the historic zone. Of course, we've got a much larger municipal area than just the historic zone, of course. And of course, and I also made in my comments to council, I also recommended that somehow we could encourage the private property owners such as River Plaza, Deemer's Landing, Helm, Garrison, and remind them that there's incentive programs in place for them as well to maybe get the ball rolling there as well. Of course, we don't have that jurisdiction there in the private areas, and also the schools, possibly William Penn would make sense, and indeed the industrial parks within town. And that's about where I left it with my email to council. Also reminded them that those additional parking lots will require additional work to install the EV stations because they are not provisioned as the 3rd Street lot was. So it's just something to bear in mind. So there's electricity there, but of course the wires have to be run to the individual spots that are eventually selected. So all in all, it's yeah, I think we're making some good progress. And again, there's a little good synopsis of this in the council notes in the latest edition or last edition of the weekly. So it's I think things are looking good.
Well, let me talk about the undercurrent that's happening, you know, with the what started out to be as simple, let's put this in the ground and see how it works, to now suddenly there's a requirement for the strategic plan. You know, we're putting it in without a strategy now.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I'm thinking this was going to take maybe a year, put it all together. And now I got people saying, well, you could be done in a couple hours. Well, it only took us 3 years to do the comprehensive plan. So, you know, I'm not, I approach it with a little jaundice here. So,
well, what's the holdup? Come on.
So having said that, though, I think we start to gather some thought processes at least to develop some kind of strategy long term. So to what we're saying, we've got while we're doing some commercial activities here with the 3rd Street lot and do the library and the other city lots, we still have residential on-street parking that we have to look at, and we still have the commercial zones that we have to look at. And I think we have someone that can help us with that part of it. So I'm looking for volunteers. So George, can you help us with the commercial side? What I'm looking for are thoughts and impressions as to how commercial property owners would consider this, approach this. What are their likes, dislikes? Maybe just a basic SWOT analysis as to, and then the benefit analysis of it.
What commercial areas are you looking at besides River Plaza?
Well, you've got the same thing of, they talked about the farmers market.
Farmers market.
And then you've got Amazon, you've got all of the large industries around here. I guess what I'm going to say is anything not city and residential. And then if we could get 2 folks to look at the residential side, what are your thoughts as far as, you know, if they're on street parking, you know, we face the issue of cords running across the sidewalks. I mean, the bricks are bad enough. Now it'll become an obstacle course. So, you know, we need to look at that. And again, just gathering basic thoughts, basic SWOT analysis of how this would work. And then from there, then Ryan, if you could let Chris know that we're going to come towards him. We talked a little bit about it last time about getting some basic elements of a strategy, but it's moved faster than when we originally talked about it last month.
I will pass it on.
So, you know, we get a straw man that we could fill in, and then even maybe some local communities that are similar to us that have got a strategy. If we could just get that information, we can do a lot of the grunt work ourselves and then bring it back, much like we're doing with the site plan work, bring back for final approvals and recommendations kind of thing.
Sure thing.
Anything else that we need to do? On any thoughts on the charging stations? I mean, it's
David,
taken off.
I think at the last HAC meeting, they had a discussion on the topic, at least in the historic district. And I did not listen in, but they may be working on some things in that regard as well.
They are, and then to that point, their approach right at the moment was to do and worry about just 3rd Street, because they're trying to look at it as a one-off. Now, I've since talked to who did I talk to? I talked to Laura, and I told her they gotta start to think about it from a more global perspective for the district, and that because it's for, just as I said, it's taken on a life of its own, and they need to be getting those thoughts into their even into the guidelines kind of thing, so that they're not caught by surprise like we were, how fast this thing took off. So I don't know what has been done since then, but at least I have brought that forward.
HAC is going to take a greater interest in the on-street parking, as he discussed, and
Yeah.
we have looked into that. To me, I see that as a separate phase, because you're attacking a different problem with the on-street parking. But there is a large company in Europe that's been putting the chargers in lampposts, as we previously discussed. They're called Ubertricity. They were just recently acquired by Shell, big oil company, and they've got that down to a science. And right now they're strictly European, easy European connector, European standard. But that's, I really see, as far as getting on-street parking in a historic zone, it's probably going to be the only feasible solution. Hiding them in I think a lamppost is a good way to go, because again, there's wiring there already, at least one wiring, and it could be level 2 wiring for 240 volts could be configured in there. But that's going to be a little bit more dicey, because obviously you can't put one of the semi-connect charging stations, as we're putting in 3rd Street, right in front of the courthouse. I think some people would squawk about that. So,
Exactly. I mean, but they're the reason I'm saying that we got to get some thoughts, at least, that we can start feeding off each other on as far as the thought process. Because what I don't want to do is just walk in one day and we got chargers sticking up out of the street, much like we got the gas meters running down Delaware Street. I mean, when they were presented 2 years ago, I think no one had the feeling of how big those things would be, and just how downright ugly they would be. So we need to be proactive on this as best we can. All right. Any more on chargers? And Gail, the traffic, the WMAPCO traffic thing, is that still moving?
Before we move on,
Go ahead.
I'm on HAC and have been privy, therefore, to a lot of the conversations that are held regarding their activities and what I view as what is in John's purview on behalf of the planning board. And I think that HAC has got the cart in front of the horse. They should not be concerned. And first of all, they're not, that I can find in any ordinance, authorized to be proactive regarding, let's call it the electrification of Old Newcastle. John is correct. In those houses that have street parking and no driveways, it's a separate problem from the rest of Newcastle, which is an easily solved issue. Well, I say easily, it's different issue. We have to make sure that there aren't too many chefs in the kitchen here, and that their input should be regarding their, as far as I'm concerned, their sole interest in what we're trying to achieve. That being, keep it as historical, quote unquote, as possible. And I would not be surprised at all if there is at the federal level a law that's passed, much like there was for cell phone towers, which made it illegal for townships or incorporated cities such as our own to do anything to interfere with what needed to happen for the transmission of cell phones. And then it's not going to matter. We don't want to get in that fix. So let's come up with a solution and then have HAC say, or make suggestions or whatever. But the solution is the solution, and it can't be a slave to making something from 2 centuries separated from when the first homes were built, and make it conform. You just can't do it, and it's not practical. Having said that, there are, what John suggested, in a lamppost, that's great. That would be a great solution, but you're still going to have wires leading from that lamppost to the individual homes because there's not a lamppost per home. And where do you see the parking problem that's created along the street that serves with the chargers?
It'll be a gladiatorial sport.
I can't even imagine. It'll be like Seinfeld in New York. But anyway, I just want to make sure that John and the fellow from HAC who's working on it seems to be doing a great job. Let's not let the tail wag the dog here. We got to make our decisions based upon what is doable and what is cost efficient. And by the way, John, I mean, I could be completely out of my mind. I've been told that before, but there's a windfall coming our way from the federal level. Is that not correct?
I believe, I'm not sure about the federal level, but my understanding is the state of Delaware rebate program is going to sunset at the end of June. And that's why the impetus right now is to determine the number of chargers that the MSC is going to acquire. And another thing came up during the last meeting we had with the MSC is that the number of chargers is per location, per determined location. Say, for example, 3rd Street lot, library lot, etc. You could have up to 6 individual charging stations at each location that would be funded by the state rebate program. So right now they're making that determination. How many chargers do we want? The great thing is they do not have to be installed right away. Of course, they've had the one charger on hand that they got under the rebate program last year, and they haven't installed it yet. So that's it. Yeah, let's get that money while it's free. Let's go for it. That's
well, I agree with everything you said, and that's a good point. But I'm not referring to that found money.
Okay.
There's a much larger sum of money in play here from the first quote unquote COVID bill that's being distributed across the country.
Okay.
And Newcastle is earmarked for funds, although the amount I think is still up in the air, but it is literally found money.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were you, I'd put my politician's hat on and throw my hat in the ring.
Okay. That's good information, Bill, because I'm not sure that MSC is aware of that, or it wasn't.
Well, just by
Wasn't brought up in any for me. You're talking about the infrastructure bill.
Well, yeah, it says, yeah, the infrastructure bill.
Yeah. Okay.
You can use words loosely as well.
Yeah. It's exactly. So I will definitely investigate that.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and it might fund everything for all we know.
Hey, John, what are the state rebates right now per charger?
They would cover. I know they would cover up to 16. I'm not sure how it broke out per charger. I think I don't know the exact numbers. $21,000 per site, I think, was the cap. But don't quote me on that. That's
Okay.
a much better question for Pam Patone at MSC.
Okay.
Number, but I do know that the state will cover 6 locations at any given site, is my understanding.
You need to touch base with Pam quickly because she's going to be leaving. I'm not sure exactly when, but she'll be leaving.
Yes, yeah, she's moving on. Yes, okay.
So if you can grab
that myself.
Because I saw something that said, Ms. Patone advised MSC has adopted a rebate program of $250 for residential and $500 for commercial installation.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it's peanuts for, because of the costs to, the general cost for these things. So it's going to be hard to convince a lot of people to put these in with just a small rebate like that. I thought it would be a lot more than that. And if we can get some more from what Bill's talking about from the infrastructure plan, that might be a little bit better
Incentive.
tool to coerce people to start putting these in. Especially if the state rebate program ends June 30th. What happens after June 30th? Are they going to reinstate it at some time?
That's a very good question. That's they've extended those programs before, but there's no information.
Okay.
Okay. And I think some of that will tie into the infrastructure bill that's coming forward. So, it's.
Gotcha.
But to what you're saying, we need to take advantage of other people's money.
Right.
Wherever these rebates are, wherever the grants are, wherever the federal money could be to take it, we as a town should be taking advantage of it.
I agree.
It's economic Darwinism. If it's not us going to eat that, then someone else is.
It's going to be a battle royale. That's why I'm saying get in early. Mm-hmm. And actually, we have a better case than anybody else I can think of to utilize that money, which is found money, and it does not have any qualifications on it from the federal government. It's for the general use and funding of whatever municipality, state, or whatever locality that gets some, and we are due to get some, and it'd be a shame to just sit there and not know about it and have somebody else use it for God knows what.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, Gail?
Yes. So it's actually the WMAPCO transportation study. It's a lot broader than traffic. So maybe on the next minutes, if it's on there, maybe we could put transportation because it's covering bicycle ped, freight, transit, flooding, all kinds of things. So the one update is we had an advisory committee meeting. The advisory committee, there's representatives from Century Engineering, which is the consultant, WMAPCO, Del Dot, the city, John's on it. We tried to get a number of people from different communities. So anyway, we just went over some of the input they had gathered from the community. Like I said, the website, if you go to willmapgo/City of Newcastle, you can still, they have a map where you can go to a specific location and make a comment. But there was also a notes section where they had, I forget what the diagram's called, but kind of consolidated a lot of the comments. So the consultant and others are now working on alternatives and solutions for us to look at. So that's where things stand.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Comments from the commission? Any comments from the commissioners? Well, here, let me give you one. Each year we are supposed to elect a chair and a vice chair. So I have been slow in that based on the pandemic and everything else. It just was not an issue for me. So I've neglected that. Now it's time to fix it. So we need to have the election for the chair and the vice chair. I do not want to be the chair. So I want to force it to someone in the commission. And Bill, if you want to stay vice chair, we need to know that so that we can have the election. So
Yes.
What I'm saying to you all is decide if you want these positions. I'm not sure how best to have the election with the video here. We could just roll call it, or if you send me your interest, then I'll send it back out and say, these are the candidates for the position. I'm open to suggestions. My point is, I think I've done it long enough and it's time for someone else to drive the bus. I think it's good, it's healthy. And I'm open to thoughts on this.
When do we need to have the election?
We can have it anytime. Like I said, next month would be fine.
A
Next month would be,
deadline?
huh?
Do we have a deadline?
Other than I don't want it to go too long, because it's been more than a year from that perspective. And I would make the argument about the pandemic, et cetera, but it's, I'm sure if I subtracted all that out, we'd be coming up on a year for sure. So I'd like to do it next month if at all we could.
Are we going to nominate people, David?
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
Well, in answer to your question, I would like to remain the vice chair.
Okay.
God knows you don't want me as chairman.
Oh,
All right.
And I have not had a chance to since I asked her before and she turned me down, I feel it's okay. I would nominate Gail if she would consider it.
Well, probably not at this time. But why don't we, I mean, how about if we each send interest or nominations to David to consolidate? I mean, I don't know how to do it.
That's a good idea.
Send me your interest in nominations and I'll create the matrix and I'll get it out to you before the meeting and then we can do the decision at the meeting.
Okay.
David, you're going to stay on, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I want to sit on the other side for a change.
I don't blame you.
It's been a day or two since I've been on that side, so I want to get back there.
Were we that difficult to corral?
So, and again, like I said,
Jeff was mean to you. That's what it was.
I'm sorry. I think it's healthy that we have the change. I mean, it's different perspectives. I mean, it's what we need going forward.
And do we need another member to replace?
Yes, and that'll be the decision of the mayor, and he hasn't let me know what candidates he has in mind, and it's still got to be approved by city council. So, and based on the
Okay.
timing, he may have
So
it. He may have a candidate in front of council already. I don't know.
All right.
So David, I just, this is more of a question, but I think we're in the budget time for the city, and do we as planning commission need to submit a request or?
Yeah, I've been in conversations with Bill, and we plugged in a number. I think it's in the neighborhood of $5,000 right at the moment. But if you've got other projects and think we need more money than that, then let me know and I'll get it to him right away. But
Does that include consultant time? Do we have to pay for?
it was whatever. I just based it on projects that we had in motion and what I thought might be some impacts coming in from the transportation study. Finishing up the projects that we have, doing some work on the cars, and then, you know, a little bit for whatever surprises we may have. You know, and that still leaves a lot of, you know, work to be done, much to what I said before. A lot of grunt work we'll have to do, research we'll have to do, things of that nature. But at least it was a start to get something in there.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your question is yes, there's money in there for consulting on. It won't be another. It won't be, you know, the neighborhood of what we were getting in for the comp plan and stuff like that. But and that's another I'll say project that I wanted to add to the list once we got something off, so that we don't get overwhelmed. But is actually the grant searches. You know, trying to find grants out there so that again, using other people's money, we can make some things happen. And so yeah, that's there as well.
All right. And who is it that prepares the annual where we stand against our comp plan?
The annual the annual report for the comp plan.
Yes.
Yeah, that was coming from that was actually coming from the planners. Ryan, then you guys did that for a while, and then
Yeah, Jeff and I worked on a few in the past.
Yeah, so that's usually due in June. So it's kind of a living document, you know, as we're doing some things. It's just a matter of taking that form and just saying what's in process, where we are in completion, and things of that nature. And that was usually the attachment in the back. What do I want to say? The goals and strategies in the back that was in that spreadsheet form. And to that same point now, I still haven't seen the plan come out of the state yet. I'll have to follow up on that, but because it's now, what are we talking about, 5 months, give or take a bit. So.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make sure we have enough money in there, you know, to.
Sure. No. I don't want to be caught short either.
Okay, cover consultant time.
Yeah. But if you got, again, to your point, Gail, if we've got other things in there that I haven't thought about along the way, then let me know so we can talk to Bill and get that changed. Anything else from anyone? All right, then we will head towards public comments. Kim, do we have anybody?
Yes, I have Mr. Gross with his hand up. Hold on one second.
Mr. Gross, you're still muted.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commission.
How are you, sir?
All doing as well as one could be. I thank you all for doing such a wonderful job. My main comments, I guess from attending all the meetings, is kind of geared for the electric charging stations. The first is I was kind of for at least running the wiring and the infrastructure for a charger station down at the wharf. Because while we have an open street, rather than at some later point somebody saying, you know what, it'd be a great idea to have one down at that end, since we're going to put one possibly at the sailing club. But if you're not going to have the station in time before that, I would definitely plan on at least doing some channeling and some infrastructure work with putting, yes, Jeff, up. As usual, Jeff is way ahead of me. So that part's done then. Thank you.
Yep.
The other thought is, as far as the other areas, I would definitely include other neighborhoods. Whether the thought is, well, whether they're going to have any electric cars or not, just out of fairness and equality, on the off chance that they might. I would put that on your target list, George, as well, or whoever's going to do the residential looking into.
It's citywide.
The,
Phil. It's citywide. It's the neighborhoods as well as downtown.
Yeah. And then last but not least, I'm not clear on this myself. Do charging stations have a built-in time limit? Meaning, if it's in a residential area, just take 3rd Street for an instance. People come into the park, they want to make a day of it. They plug their car in to one of the two, or both of them end up getting filled. When the car's fully charged, what happens? Is there going to be any kind of monitoring of as to whether, okay, you've had your car parked there 10 hours or 8 hours? Normally we don't care, but because it's tying up a charging station cord, you need to put on your thought process how that's going to be managed. Because like you said, we don't want New York Seinfeld episodes going on with damaging cars or pissed off people.
A couple of ways that's addressed, Phil. One is overage fees or idle fees if the car is parked there too long. And another way is you just cut the power off, but you still have the issue, the car is still physically there. And this was discussed, and at least initially, it's probably going to be approached as an enforcement issue. So there would have to be a time limit. It's the only way it's going to work. And so it means that the initial plan is not to, at least at first, they're not going to have any billing. They're not going to enable the billing function of the charger. It's going to have to be approached in that, like, limited parking, 2-hour parking, whatever the case is. So that's the likely solution to your concern.
Cool. And lastly, I really like the, I guess, the open-mindedness as far as my thought was where to put a charging station in the courthouse area, because obviously if someone's taking a picture of someone in front of the courthouse, hidden as a lamppost would be a whole lot better than an LED stainless steel tower in their pictures that they're taking. So yeah, I would really appreciate if you can include, what you're already considering as a factor. So again, thank you for all you're doing and appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Phil. Anyone else, Kim? Anyone out there?
Nope, nobody else has their hand raised.
Okay. Then If we have nothing else, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And thank you all. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night now.
Good night.